They attacked Earth's healers, so we unleashed the angels of death. HFY, Sci-Fi stories. The year was 2145. Humanity had reached its zenith. After centuries of wars, plagues, and strife, Earth had finally embraced peace, powered by advanced technologies and a profound understanding of empathy and healing. But peace, as always, was fragile. Earth's healers were the backbone of this new world, a class of highly trained individuals who could cure any disease, mend the gravest of wounds, and even reverse the most devastating effects of genetic disorders. They were humanity's brightest hope for a utopian future. They didn't fight. They healed. They didn't conquer. They nurtured. They were our protectors in the truest sense. But not everyone in the galaxy shared humanity's vision. The Zarati Empire, a brutal race of warlords known for their relentless conquest of lesser species, had watched Earth's prosperity from afar. They saw our healers as a threat, an affront to their own bloody reign. In their eyes, peace was weakness, and the strength of a species was determined by its ability to destroy. They sent their most lethal armada to Earth. The attack was swift. Without warning, the Zarati warships descended upon our cities, and their forces launched an assault on Earth's healing centers. Thousands of healers were massacred in cold blood, their lives snuffed out in a single, horrifying moment. The survivors scrambled to escape, but the Zarati's brutality was overwhelming. They had underestimated us, though they hadn't counted on our true power. Earth's healers may have been pacifists, but Earth had its own hidden weapons. The angels of death. They were humanity's final line of defense. Ancient legends, long thought to be myth, had turned out to be real. These beings were neither angels nor demons, but something far more terrifying: genetically engineered super soldiers, bred to be the perfect balance of intellect, strength, and ruthlessness. They had been created by a secret government project during the early days of human expansion into space, a project that had long been buried, but never forgotten. When the Zarati attacked, the world's leaders activated the angels of death. They arrived like shadows at dusk, silent, unstoppable, and terrifying, clad in sleek, black exosuits designed to amplify their natural abilities. The angels were a sight to behold. Their faces were concealed behind dark helmets, their bodies perfect killing machines. They didn't speak. They didn't negotiate. They simply acted. With lethal precision, the angels of death descended upon the Zarati forces. Where the invaders had struck first with brutal efficiency, humanity struck back with the wrath of a species protecting its own. The angels engaged in hand-to-hand combat, their movements a blur of savage grace. They cut through Zarati warriors like a hot knife through butter, their weapons disintegrating anything in their path. The Zarati had never known such enemies, humans who didn't need to be taught the art of war but had been born from it. One by one, the Zarati warships were obliterated. Their ground forces were decimated, and the healers, the very ones the invaders had sought to destroy, were freed. As the battle raged on, it was clear that humanity would not be crushed by the Zarati. Earth was not a world of weakness, it was a world of warriors who had learned peace only to protect it at any cost. In the aftermath, the angels of death disappeared as quietly as they had arrived, retreating into the shadows from which they had emerged. They were not here for glory or recognition. They were simply a tool, an instrument of vengeance. Earth's healers, once thought defenseless, stood victorious, but they knew better than anyone that peace, like everything else, could be broken. The Zarati Empire learned a harsh lesson that day. To attack Earth's healers was to challenge humanity as a whole, and humanity, in all its quiet strength, would never bow. As for the angels of death, they remained humanity's most closely guarded secret, a force of nature, born not to conquer, but to defend, and they would be there, always, watching from the shadows, ready to strike when humanity needed them most. After all, peace could be a weapon too, but only in the hands of those who understood the cost of war. End. They attacked Earth's healers, so we unleashed the angels of death. HFY Sci-Fi Stories, Part 2. The aftermath of the battle was a turning point for Earth, but the war was far from over. The Zarati Empire, humiliated and wounded, would not simply retreat into the void. They would regroup, lick their wounds, and return with vengeance in their hearts. In the quiet moments following the massacre, Earth's leaders gathered in secret councils, hidden beneath the shattered remnants of cities that once thrived in peace. The healers, though grateful for their survival, knew that this was not just a victory for them, it was a warning. They had been saved by humanity's deadliest warriors, the angels of death, but they knew the fragile veil of peace would never hold again. The Zerati had tasted defeat, and their pride would not let them forget it. They would strike again, and this time, the cost would be higher. But Earth had a secret weapon that no one could have anticipated. The angels of death were not the only creation born from the ashes of war. The same clandestine project that had produced them had given rise to something else, something far more devastating. The Zerati would soon learn that when humanity had been backed into a corner, it not only defended itself, it adapted. The Ascendants. Unlike the angels, who had been engineered for combat, the Ascendants were a new generation of humanity's greatest minds, infused with cutting-edge cybernetic enhancements and psychological conditioning. They were thinkers, strategists, and diplomats, but with the ability to unleash unparalleled destruction when the need arose. For the first time in history, humanity's greatest minds had been fused with the power of the angels, creating a new breed of leader, part human, part machine, but fully committed to the survival of their species. Admiral Vance Tyrell, the first of the Ascendants, stood at the helm of humanity's defense, with his mind linked directly to the neural networks of Earth's most advanced warships. He could predict enemy movements with perfect accuracy. His tactical brilliance was unmatched, his leadership unwavering. Under his command, Earth's forces began to shift their focus from retaliation to full-scale offensive strategies. Tyrell's thoughts were always 2 steps ahead, his every decision calculated, precise, and with each new victory, the Ascendants rose in number, each one a fusion of human ingenuity and cold, mechanical efficiency. The Zerati, meanwhile, were regrouping. Their empire had been shattered, their forces scattered across the galaxy, but they had not lost their resolve. As they gathered their might for another assault, they began to realize the true nature of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity, specifically, Earth's ability to evolve. Their return to Earth was swift and brutal, but this time, Earth was prepared. The Ascendants, alongside the angels of death, were ready to turn the tables. Earth would not merely defend itself, it would strike with the full force of its accumulated might. The Zerati arrived in a fleet of warships, their engines burning hot as they descended upon Earth's atmosphere. They expected resistance, but not the kind they faced. As their ships broke through the atmosphere, they were met by the devastating onslaught of Earth's own fleet, the warships now enhanced by the Ascendant's genius. In a matter of hours, Earth had turned the tide of the war. Admiral Tyrell's voice echoed through the comm systems of every ship, his tone unwavering. Prepare for full engagement. Our enemy will not stop until we are destroyed. We will not give them the satisfaction. Fight for every inch of this world. Fight for the future of humanity. On the ground, the angels of death once again made their silent descent. This time, however, they were joined by the Ascendants, who had devised new weapons, new strategies, and new forms of warfare that no one had anticipated. Humanity had transcended mere defense. Now, it was offensive, aggressive, and determined. The final battle came in the heart of Earth's greatest city. The Zerati, battered and broken, attempted one last desperate push to breach humanity's defenses, but they had underestimated the unity that had emerged from the ashes of their previous defeat. The angels of death stormed the battlefield, cutting down Zerati warriors with a cold, calculated fury. The Ascendants coordinated every move with military precision, directing fleets and troops in perfect harmony. The Zerati were not prepared for a species that not only fought to survive but fought with the full might of their intellect, their technology, and their unyielding will to protect what they had built. And then, as the final Zerati warship exploded in a ball of fire and debris, Admiral Tyrell spoke the words that would echo across the galaxy. This is Earth's final warning. The Zerati, now broken and scattered, had learned the true lesson. To underestimate humanity was to invite annihilation. Earth, once a peaceful world of healers, had become a bastion of strength. We would never again be a soft target for those who sought to destroy us. We had evolved, we had adapted, and we had shown the galaxy what humanity could truly do when its back was against the wall. In the wake of the battle, Earth returned to its healing ways, but with one important change. We were no longer just the healers of the galaxy. We were its protectors. End. They attacked Earth's healers, so we unleashed the angels of death. HFY Sci-Fi Stories, Part 3. The Zarati Empire had been humbled, but the universe was vast, and there were always those who sought to challenge humanity. The victory over the invaders was not the end, it was a beginning. Earth had once been known for its wisdom, for its peaceful ways, but now it had become a legend of a species that, when pushed to the edge, would unleash its greatest weapons, its minds, its warriors, its will to survive. Yet peace, fleeting as it always was, could never last forever. Though the Zarati Empire had been shattered, rumors began to spread throughout the galaxy. Whispers in the dark reaches of space told of a new alliance, an alliance of warlords and mercenaries, made up of every species who had long coveted Earth's resources, its technology, its healing abilities. It didn't take long for the first attack to come. The Nexar Collective, a merciless group of bioengineered warlords from the outer rim of the galaxy, launched a full-scale assault on Earth's outer colonies. The Nexar were known for their savage tactics and their ability to adapt their biology with terrifying speed, making them one of the most feared forces in the galaxy. They had heard of Earth's defeat of the Zarati, and they sought to prove that no one, not even humanity, could stand in their way. This time, humanity was not caught off guard. The angels of death, who had once been humanity's secret weapon, were now a part of Earth's defense network. Their cold, mechanical precision was enhanced by new combat algorithms designed by the Ascendants. Earth's healers, too, had been rearmed with knowledge that no enemy could strip away. Admiral Vance Tyrell, now a living legend, stood at the head of Earth's military forces. His once youthful face, hardened by countless battles, now bore the weight of his decisions. The Ascendants had learned not just how to fight but how to think, how to evolve the very nature of warfare itself. As the Nexar ships entered the system, their monstrous fleet seemed unstoppable, their weapons capable of tearing through entire colonies in seconds. But Earth had learned the hard way that brute force wasn't always the answer. And this time, the Nexar would face a different kind of response. The commanders of the Angels of Death had evolved. They were no longer just warriors, they were strategists, tacticians, and leaders. Each angel had undergone modifications, amplifying their already superhuman traits. With the combined expertise of the Ascendants, the angels were now a reflection of humanity's relentless pursuit of perfection. No longer did they simply fight, now they outthought and outmaneuvered their enemies. The Nexar landed on the colony world of Arius IV, where they found themselves met by a terrifying force. The Angels of Death didn't need to overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Instead, they had been instructed to use strategy, precision, and psychological warfare. The Nexar, known for their pride and brutal strength, were not prepared for the subtlest of tactics, the ability to fight a battle not just with weapons, but with the mind. Admiral Tyrell coordinated the operation from his command ship, the Vigilant. He had already anticipated every move the Nexar would make. As their ships approached the atmosphere, Earth's fleet of warships, now outfitted with the latest Ascendant technology, dropped out of FTL, faster than light, travel and engaged with deadly accuracy. Within moments, the Nexar fleet was in disarray. A series of well-placed decoy ships pulled them off course, sending their largest capital ship straight into an asteroid field where they became easy pickings for the Angels. On the surface of Arius IV, the Angels of Death descended in a rain of fire, but they didn't engage immediately. Instead, they infiltrated the Nexar's command structures, spreading fear and confusion among the invaders. They sowed doubt, making the Nexar question their superiority. Then, the real assault began. The Nexar, known for their brutal biomodifications, were a formidable force, but they were not prepared for the psychotronic wave the Ascendants had developed, a neural disruption field that scrambled the Nexar's bioenhancements, rendering their strength useless. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, and in doing so, had sealed their fate. As the Angels cut down the remaining Nexar forces, Admiral Tyrell issued a single command. Engage Phase 2. Across the battlefield, hidden beneath the surface of Arius IV, humanity's final weapon was deployed. A series of terraforming bombs had been secretly installed, capable of wiping out an entire planet's surface. Their purpose was not to destroy life, but to ensure that any force that attacked Earth's colonies would be left with nothing but ruin. In a flash of bright light, the Nexar forces were eradicated. Their bioengineered soldiers, their ships, their pride, everything was reduced to ash. But even as the Nexar threat was wiped out, the universe was watching. The galaxy now knew that Earth had something they did not, the will to adapt, to grow stronger with each challenge. Earth had become more than just a planet of healers. It had become a fortress, a symbol of resilience and strength. And though peace had once been the goal, humanity had learned that survival came at a cost. The Angels of Death, now legends in their own right, had ensured humanity's survival. But their mission was not over. The universe was vast, and there would always be more who sought to test Earth's strength. Humanity would be ready, because Earth was no longer just a world of healers. It was a world of warriors. And those warriors would never let Earth fall. End. They attacked Earth's healers, so we unleashed the Angels of Death. HFY Sci-Fi Stories, Part 4. The dust had barely settled on Arius IV when the next threat emerged, a threat not from the far reaches of space, but from within. Despite the triumphs over the Zerati and the Nexar, the war had left deep scars. Earth had always been a beacon of peace, a shining example of what was possible when species worked together. But as its power grew, so did the fears of those who believed peace was nothing more than a facade. The Humanities Ascendant Council had originally been founded with the goal of fostering intergalactic peace and cooperation. The Ascendants, once simple healers and strategists, were now its governing body, overseeing Earth's defense, its scientific advancements, and even its relations with other worlds. But not everyone was content with the new direction humanity was taking. A faction within Earth's government, known as the Epsilon Initiative, began to voice concerns about the increasing militarization of humanity. They feared the Angels of Death, the Ascendants, and the ongoing technological advancements that seemed to promise eternal war. They argued that Earth's peaceful nature was being lost, that humanity was becoming what it had once fought against. The Epsilon Initiative had supporters among the populace, many of whom viewed the war-torn galaxy with suspicion. They advocated for a return to Earth's roots, healing, diplomacy, and non-violence. But one thing they didn't account for was that the Angels of Death had not just been a response to invaders, they were the guardians of a new era. An era where Earth was no longer the helpless victim of galactic marauders but a force to be reckoned with. And within the heart of the Epsilon Initiative, a figure was rising, one whose ambition to end humanity's violent streak would have far-reaching consequences. Serafina Vale, a former leader of the humanitarian efforts that had made Earth the peaceful utopia it once was, now stood at the head of the initiative. With a charisma that could sway even the most hardened hearts, she rallied support across Earth's colonies. Her ideology was simple: peace through isolation, and if necessary, through negotiation with the forces of the galaxy, no matter how dangerous. To her, the Angels of Death were not saviors, but symbols of everything that was wrong with humanity's newfound strength. She sought to disband the Angels, return control of Earth's military forces to democratic rule, and eliminate the Ascendant Council's influence over the planet. But Serafina's vision was one of idealism, not reality. She hadn't considered that humanity's enemies wouldn't let Earth live in peace, not as long as Earth was seen as a threat to their dominance. And the greater galactic powers that had once feared humanity's rapid rise had begun to stir once more. They knew that if Earth's military might was left unchecked, no empire would be safe. As the Epsilon Initiative grew in influence, rumors started circulating of a new alliance forming in the outer colonies, a coalition of power-hungry factions who had already begun to whisper of taking Earth down before it became too powerful to resist. Among them were the remnants of the Zerati Empire, scattered but far from broken, and new players like the Graxon Syndicate, a mercenary group known for its ruthlessness and cunning. Serafina Vale had no idea the storm she was about to provoke. She believed her campaign for peace would bring Earth back to its roots, but she underestimated the cold reality of the universe, and the depths to which humanity had descended to protect itself. The Angels of Death, though, had their own thoughts on the matter. Unlike Serafina, they were not idealists. They had been bred for war, forged in the fires of conflict, and they had no interest in negotiation. The Ascendants, too, had come to understand that peace was only sustainable when one had the power to defend it. To let Earth's forces weaken would be to open the door to further invasions, and that was a door they refused to allow anyone to open. The angels had learned, over time, that peace without strength was a lie. As tensions mounted, Earth found itself teetering on the brink of civil war. On one side, Seraphina and her followers pushed for demilitarization, for a return to diplomacy at all costs. On the other, the Angels of Death and the Ascendants prepared for a confrontation they knew was inevitable. The Epsilon Initiative, once seen as a path to healing, now represented the greatest threat to humanity's future survival. The day came when the two factions finally collided. It began as a political standoff, Seraphina Vale's supporters in the government calling for the dismantling of the Ascendants' influence. But as the pressure built, violence erupted. Clashes between loyalist forces and those who sided with the Epsilon Initiative turned into full-scale battles in the streets of Earth's largest cities. The population, divided between the pacifists and the warriors, found itself torn between ideologies that seemed impossible to reconcile. Admiral Vance Tyrell, still leading humanity's defense forces, could see the writing on the wall. The Ascendants were not going to allow Seraphina's movement to weaken Earth's defenses. The Angels of Death, too, were prepared to do whatever it took to prevent their beloved world from falling back into weakness. They had protected Earth before, and they would protect it again, even if it meant turning against the people they had once sworn to protect. The moment came in the heart of Earth's capital, when the Angels of Death stood at the gates of the Epsilon Initiative's headquarters. Seraphina Vale stood at the entrance, flanked by her followers, her hands raised in a gesture of peace, as if the bloodshed of the last few years could be undone by a simple show of diplomacy. Her voice echoed in the empty streets, calling for a ceasefire, for talks, for a return to the values humanity had once upheld. But the angels did not lower their weapons. "We do not fight for peace through surrender." Tyrell's voice came through the comlink, cold and calculating. "We fight to protect Earth. We fight to ensure we are never slaves to another empire again." Seraphina's eyes flickered, and for a moment, the tension seemed to crack. She could feel the weight of the decision. In her heart, she wanted peace, but her people were not ready for the consequences of the alternative. She lowered her hands slowly. And in that moment, the galaxy learned something profound. Humanity had found a new path, one forged not by peace at any cost, but by the unwavering resolve to protect what mattered most: freedom, strength, and survival. The Angels of Death, once seen as humanity's darkest weapon, had become its shield, and as Earth's brightest minds and fiercest warriors stood united, it was clear humanity had learned the most important lesson of all. Peace would be earned through strength. End. They attacked Earth's healers, so we unleashed the Angels of Death. HFY Sci-Fi Stories, Part 5. The universe was watching, waiting for Earth to falter. The previous conflicts, the Zerati, the Nexar, the Epsilon Initiative, had drawn attention from every corner of the galaxy. Humanity had become a force to be reckoned with, and not everyone was pleased about it. Though Earth had just barely avoided the precipice of civil war, Seraphina Vale's ideals continued to ripple through the galaxy, sowing seeds of dissent in the farthest colonies. Her vision of a peaceful, demilitarized Earth had its share of supporters, especially among those who feared the rising power of the Angels of Death and the Ascendants. But there were others who saw Earth's growing strength as a threat, not a promise of peace. It wasn't long before the next wave of conflict arrived. The Karivans, a highly advanced species from a distant system, had watched humanity's rise with growing apprehension. They were a warlike race, and their empire spanned several systems. For centuries, they had dominated the galaxy with their superior technology and their terrifying fleets of battleships. But now, Earth's rapidly expanding influence and its unparalleled military might threaten their supremacy. The Karivans knew they had to act before Earth grew too powerful to defeat. They sent an emissary, a high-ranking Karivan general named Draxist IV, to Earth, demanding that humanity disband its military forces and submit to Karivan control. They made it clear that failure to comply would result in the destruction of Earth's colonies and the annihilation of any species that opposed them. The Karivans saw themselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy and considered humanity's rise to power an insult. Earth's response, however, was far different than what the Karivans expected. Admiral Vance Tyrell, now a symbol of humanity's resilience, stood before the Karivan emissary and delivered a simple, yet profound message: we are not your subjects, we are not your slaves, and we will never bow to you. The Karivans, used to subjugating entire civilizations, were stunned. They had expected fear, submission, or at worst, a fight that would end in their victory. What they received instead was defiance, a spark of the same fire that had once led humanity to victory against the Zarati and the Nexer. Earth's strength was no longer in question. But Drax's Tvor was not one to back down easily. He issued an ultimatum: submit to Karivan rule or face total destruction. The Karivans did not understand. Humanity had been shaped by a long history of war and peace, of suffering and survival. They had faced the darkness of the galaxy and emerged stronger. They had learned that peace came not from submission, but from strength, unity, and the willingness to fight for what they held dear. In the aftermath of the Karivan emissary's visit, Admiral Tyrell met with the Ascendant Council and the Angels of Death. The decision was made: the Karivans would be met with fire and steel. The Angels of Death, now an ever-evolving force, were deployed with deadly precision. Each angel was linked to the Ascendants, their neural enhancements allowing them to adapt to every situation. They weren't simply warriors anymore, they were humanity's ultimate response to those who sought to impose their will on Earth. But the Karivans were no mere adversaries. They were powerful, with fleets capable of decimating entire worlds in seconds. To confront them, Earth needed more than just the Angels of Death. It needed the ingenuity of the Ascendants, the strategic brilliance of Admiral Tyrell, and the unity of every colony in the system. For the first time, Earth was not fighting for survival. They were fighting for sovereignty, the right to exist without the shadow of tyranny hanging over them. The war began swiftly. The Karivan fleet descended upon Earth's outer colonies, their warships forming a near-impenetrable wall of destruction. Each Karivan battleship was a fortress, each one armed with weapons capable of erasing entire planets from existence. But Earth had learned how to fight wars without ever facing direct confrontation. The Ascendants had prepared for this moment. They knew the Karivans would come in full force, and they had planned accordingly. In the dark recesses of space, hidden beneath the surface of humanity's greatest space stations, a new weapon had been constructed: the Vanguard Network, a series of automated defense platforms that could hack into Karivan warships, disrupt their communications, and even sabotage their weapons systems. The Ascendants, masters of strategy and technology, had designed these platforms to turn the tide of battle before it even began. The moment the Karivan fleet arrived in Earth's orbit, the Vanguard network activated. Within seconds, the first Karivan ships were crippled, their weapons and shields failing as Earth's advanced technology overwhelmed them. The Karivans, shocked and enraged, attempted to retaliate, but they had underestimated humanity's resolve. And then, the Angels of Death were unleashed. Silent, deadly, and unstoppable, the angels descended from the sky like a wave of destruction. They tore through the Karivan forces with precision, cutting down their warriors and dismantling their ships with surgical accuracy. Each angel was a living nightmare, an embodiment of humanity's darkest capabilities. They were the sword in humanity's hand, the last line of defense against those who would seek to crush their independence. Admiral Tyrell, aboard the Vigilant, coordinated the defense from the heart of the battle. His mind was linked to the Ascendant fleet, allowing him to predict every move the Karivans would make. But this time, he didn't need to rely on just the tactical brilliance of his own forces. He had something more: the sheer will of humanity. As the battle raged on, the Karivans began to falter. Their ships fell from the sky like burning meteors, their once imposing fleet reduced to debris. Their warriors, once feared throughout the galaxy, were no match for the precision and power of Earth's forces. In the final moments of the battle, as the last Karivan ship disintegrated in a fiery explosion, Drax's Tvor transmitted a final message: you may have won today, humans, but you will never be free. The galaxy will rise against you. Admiral Tyrell's response was cold and resolute. Let them come. And come they would. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. The Zarati had learned their lesson, as had the Nexer, the Karivans, and all who thought they could break Earth. But there were more forces out there, more factions, more empires that would seek to challenge Earth's place in the galaxy. But Earth was no longer just a world of healers. It was a world of warriors. And those warriors were ready. Humanity had not just survived the storm, it had learned to fight back. And with the angels of death at their side, Earth would never be silenced. End. They attacked Earth's healers, so we unleashed the angels of death. HFY Sci-Fi Stories, Part 6. The victory over the Karivans was nothing short of miraculous. Their once mighty empire, stretching across vast sectors of the galaxy, was now a shattered husk, its ships scattered in the wake of Earth's firestorm. Humanity had once again proven that they would not bow to any would-be conqueror, no matter their strength or cruelty. Yet as the debris from the Karivan fleet floated in the void, a chilling truth began to take root. The victory, though monumental, had drawn the attention of other powers, powers that were even older, even more dangerous, and far more devious. The Elysians were an ancient race, their civilization spanning millennia. They were known across the galaxy for their mastery of time manipulation and reality-bending technology. Rumors of their existence had long been dismissed as myth, until one day, a single Elysian fleet appeared in the galactic core. A fleet unlike any seen before, capable of phasing through space, slipping in and out of dimensions as though they were a shadow. The Elysians were not interested in conquest. They did not need planets, resources, or power. What they sought was something far more insidious, control over the very fabric of reality itself. And now, their interest had turned to Earth. Admiral Tyrell was the first to learn of their arrival. At first, it seemed like a typical diplomatic message. The Elysians had reached out to Earth's government with an offer, an ultimatum. Really, submit to their leadership, or face the consequences of a power far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Seraphina Vale, though still a vocal advocate for peace, found herself gravitating toward the need for caution. The Elysians were not like any enemy humanity had faced before. While the Karivans and Zarati were straightforward in their aggressions, the Elysians worked in shadows and whispers. They didn't threaten with guns, they threatened with the fabric of existence itself. Despite the looming threat, the Epsilon Initiative's influence had waned. Earth's response was no longer a matter of idealism, but of survival. Tyrell knew that peace wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. It was about ensuring Earth's survival against an enemy that wielded godlike powers. The angels of death were summoned once more. These were no longer mere soldiers. They were humanity's last line of defense against an enemy that could manipulate time and space. They were humanity's response to an existential threat. Each angel was equipped with the latest Ascendant enhancements, combat algorithms more advanced than anything in the galaxy, and they had been trained to face not just conventional threats, but threats to the very reality they inhabited. For once, Earth's defenders were not simply facing physical combat, they were facing an enemy that could rewrite the rules of engagement with a thought. The Elysians' first move was subtle. At the edges of Earth's outer colonies, entire fleets of ships vanished without a trace. One by one, stations went dark, their signals erased from existence as though they had never been there. The very fabric of time itself seemed to unravel, and entire fleets of Earth's ships were frozen in mid-flight, unable to move, their crews caught in a perpetual stasis. At the heart of the disturbance, the Elysian capital ship, the Vortex, a ship unlike any other, appeared. It wasn't a ship in the traditional sense, it was a living vessel, its hull shifting and changing, as though it was made from the fabric of the cosmos itself. The Vortex had the ability to warp time, sending ripples through history that distorted the present. It was a weapon that could make entire battles disappear, erase entire legacies. Humanity's response was swift and overwhelming, but it was clear that conventional tactics were useless. The Elysians were too advanced, too unpredictable. And then the angels of death engaged. Each angel, knowing they faced an enemy capable of warping reality, prepared themselves not only physically but mentally. They could not fight the Elysians in the usual way. Instead, they would need to use their own adaptations, honed through countless battles and evolutionary progress, to face an enemy that could alter the very ground they stood on. Vance Tyrell stood at the helm of the Vigilant, preparing for the battle of his life. He was joined by Seraphina Vale, who, despite her pacifist roots, now recognized the need to fight for Earth's very existence. The Elysians weren't like anything they had ever encountered. In order to survive, humanity would have to adapt again. Admiral, we cannot defeat them in the traditional sense, Serafina said, her voice full of urgency. The way we've fought before won't work. They control time. They control reality. We're outmatched. Tyrell nodded grimly, his eyes never leaving the galactic map that flickered on the screen. The Elysian's presence was spreading like a cancer, erasing everything in its path. Entire star systems had already been swallowed by their manipulation of spacetime. I know, but we're not alone. The Angels have something the Elysians don't. We can't fight them directly, but we can outthink them, he said, his voice hardening. We're going to make sure they regret ever crossing paths with humanity. The Angels of Death were not just trained warriors, they were the very manifestation of humanity's resolve, creativity, and intelligence. Their greatest weapon had never been their strength, it was their ability to adapt, to think beyond the immediate threat. They understood that to fight the Elysians, they needed to outwit them at every turn. The battle began not with guns or ships, but with a rift in time. The Elysians created fractures in reality, sending shockwaves through time that threatened to erase key moments in Earth's history. But the Angels of Death, each one linked to an advanced network that enhanced their intellect, began to sense patterns within the chaos. Using the vortex as a focal point, they deployed a series of temporal anchors, devices designed to stabilize the flow of time around Earth, blocking the Elysian influence. For the first time, humanity faced the Elysians not as mere warriors, but as time-bending strategists. The Angels adapted to the flow of time itself, creating bubbles in which they could fight on equal ground, unaffected by the constant flux around them. With each battle, they learned more about the Elysian methods. They didn't just fight, they disrupted the very fabric of time the Elysians sought to control. In the final confrontation, Admiral Tyrell gave the order to strike at the heart of the vortex. The Angels of Death, with their enhanced mental acuity and now unrivaled understanding of time manipulation, penetrated the ship's defenses, reaching the core of the Elysian technology. They planted a device, a disruptor designed to tear through the Elysians' time manipulation abilities, severing their control over reality. The Elysians, realizing too late that they had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, fought with desperation. But in the end, their reality-bending power proved no match for the combined strength of Earth's most formidable weapon, the will of humanity. The vortex crumbled, its temporal field collapsing in on itself. The Elysians, once masters of time itself, were now reduced to nothing but memory. Humanity had once again survived, this time, not by overwhelming force, but by adaptability and ingenuity. The Elysians were gone, their influence erased from time. But humanity had proven one irrefutable truth to the galaxy: Earth's greatest weapon was not its technology, its armies, or even the Angels of Death, it was its ability to survive, to evolve, and to overcome. End.